You're here because you want the core information, the stuff that really matters, without getting bogged down. We get it. Today, we're laser focused on a pretty significant update from the U.S. Army. The newly established Army Fitness Test, or AFT.
Exactly. You shared the official Army announcement with us, and what we want to understand in this deep dive is, well, the driving force behind this shift, and maybe what it tells us about the Army's strategic direction.
All right, so let's get straight to it. April 21st, 2025, that's the date the Army made it official, right?
So what?
The Army Fitness Test, the AFT, is now the standard fitness assessment for all soldiers, replacing the Army Combat Fitness Test. A pretty fundamental change right there.
It really is. And as we saw in the announcement, the Army's been, well, quite clear about its objectives with the AFT.
Which are?
The primary goals are essentially to elevate the overall fitness of soldiers, sharpen their readiness for the demands of combat, and ultimately enhance the warfighting effectiveness. The lethality of the force.
Lethality, right. That word keeps coming up.
Yes, and these are significant aims tied directly to operational capabilities.
What really stood out to me looking through the material was the sheer amount of data underpinning this whole decision.
Oh, yeah.
The announcement highlights that analysis from the RAND Corporation, combined with, get this, nearly 1 million existing Army test records, inform the development of this new standard. That's just a massive pool of information.
Absolutely. 1 million records.
Yo. This data-driven approach suggests a really rigorous attempt to identify the fitness components that are most directly linked to soldier performance and, frankly, survivability in real-world scenarios.
So moving beyond just theory.
Exactly. It moves beyond theoretical ideals and grounds the standards in, well, empirical evidence. What's fascinating here is the sheer scale of that analysis, like you said.
Okay, so break down the test itself for us. What are the actual events? What will soldiers be facing now?
Sure. The AFT comprises 5 distinct events. First, there's the 3-repetition maximum deadlift.
Okay, the deadlift.
For strength.
Right? Designed to assess maximal lower body strength, which is, crucial for many combat-related tasks. Following that is the hand-release push-up army extension. That's a measure of upper body strength and muscular endurance, but performed with a very specific technique.
Gotcha.
The third event is the sprint drag carry. This one's more complex, a dynamic test evaluating anaerobic power, strength, agility. Think moving quickly under load.
Sounds tough.
It is. Then comes the plank, a static exercise assessing core strength and stability, really vital for injury prevention and overall physical resilience.
And finally,
the 2-mile run, the familiar gauge of aerobic endurance. Still in there.
See, still 5 events covering different aspects of fitness. It feels pretty comprehensive. And now, when does this new test officially kick in? Is it immediate?
Well, the implementation is being rolled out in a phased manner.
Yeah.
It technically commences on June 1st, 2025.
Okay, June 1st.
But, and this is important, the crucial dates for the new scoring standards vary. It depends on whether a soldier is in the active component or the Reserve and National Guard, and also based on their military occupational specialty, their MOS.
Right. Let's clarify those timelines then. Who needs to meet these new standards and when?
Okay, so for active duty soldiers in 21 specific combat MOSs, think infantry, armor, combat engineers, those kinds of roles.
The frontline folks.
Exactly. Their new scoring standards will be effective starting January 1st, 2026.
January 1st, 26?
Okay. But Reserve and National Guard soldiers in those same 21 combat MOSs have a slightly later deadline. Their new scoring standards take effect on June 1st, 2026.
June 26 for Guard and Reserve in combat roles. That makes sense. Gives them a bit more time.
Yeah, this staggered approach likely allows units time to adapt their training programs and, get everyone up to speed.
And as we saw in the material you shared, it's not just one single scoring scale for everyone, is it? There are different benchmarks depending on the role.
That's absolutely right. There are 2 distinct scoring standards, the combat standard and the general standard.
Okay, tell me about the combat standard first.
The combat standard is specifically for those 21 combat MOSs we just talked about. It's sex neutral and age normed.
Sex neutral, age normed. What does age normed mean exactly in this context?
It means that performance expectations are adjusted based on age brackets. It acknowledges, natural physiological changes over time. So everyone in those demanding combat roles will be held to the same baseline within their age group, regardless of sex.
Okay, same baseline for men and women in the same age bracket for those jobs. What's the minimum score?
The minimum requirement is 60 points in each of the 5 events, with an overall minimum score of 350 points.
350 overall. Got it. That makes sense for those frontline roles where the physical demands are often very similar regardless of gender. What about the general standard then? Who does that apply to?
The general standard applies to soldiers in what they call combat-enabling specialties. These are roles that directly support combat operations, but might have different primary physical requirements.
Like mechanics or comms?
Exactly. Roles like mechanics or signal corps personnel. For this standard, it's performance normed by both sex and age groups.
Okay, so different scales based on sex and age here.
Correct. Here, the minimum score per event is also 60 points, same as the combat standard.
Yeah.
But the overall minimum score required is slightly lower at 300 points.
300, okay.
And this reflects the potentially different, though still vital, physical demands of these essential support roles, while still maintaining a solid baseline of fitness.
So it's a more tailored approach. It seems to recognize the diverse physical requirements across the entire Army. It's not just about passing a test, it's about ensuring fitness relevant to the specific job people are doing.
Precisely. And the announcement also made it clear that the Army is actively updating its broader policy framework to support the implementation of the AFT. This isn't happening in a vacuum.
What does that involve?
Well, for instance, establishing support mechanisms for soldiers with medical profiles, ensuring they can train and test safely and appropriately within whatever limitations they might have.
That's a critical consideration, definitely. You can't just introduce new physical demands without accounting for individual medical circumstances or temporary injuries. What other policy adjustments are being made?
They also mentioned there will be governance structures put in place, basically ways to closely monitor the impact of the AFT.
Impact on what?
On key indicators like overall Army readiness, soldier retention rates, and the total strength of the force, what they call the end strength.
Okay. So they're watching the bigger picture.
It indicates that the Army is taking a holistic view. It's not just about individual test scores, but about the broader health and capability of the entire organization.
If we tie this back then to the bigger picture, it really seems this new fitness test is a direct reflection of the Army's commitment to ensuring it has a force that is physically prepared for the complexities and the rigors of modern operational environments, especially in those challenging, austere conditions you often hear about.
Exactly. The AFT is clearly presented as a fundamental element in achieving that overarching goal of a, physically ready and highly capable Army. It really underscores the continuing importance of physical prowess in maintaining military effectiveness even today.
So let's try and summarize what we've unpacked here. The Army Fitness Test, the AFT, is replacing the ACFT. That was official as of April 21st.
Right.
It's a 5-event assessment: deadlift, hand release push-ups, sprint drag carry, plank, and the 2-mile run. And it's based on a huge amount of data and analysis and nearly 1 million Army records.
Aiming to boost soldier fitness, overall readiness, and that key term, lethality.
The rollout is phased starting this June, but the new scoring standards hit combat MOSs first, active duty in Jan 26, Guard and Reserve in June 26.
And remember the 2 scoring standards.
Right. The sex-neutral, age-normed combat standard for those 21 MOSs needing 350 points overall, and then the sex and age-normed general standard for combat enablers needing 300 overall. Minimum 60 per event for both.
Perfect. And importantly, the Army is adapting its policies, like for medical profiles and monitoring the overall impact, to support this significant shift.
And just to reiterate that key point from the announcement you shared, the fact that this is built upon analysis of nearly 1 million test records plus RAND, it really highlights the seriousness, the data-driven nature of this change. It wasn't just, decided on a whim.
Definitely not. It seems very deliberate.
This whole deep dive makes you think, what does this renewed emphasis on a specific kind of fitness standard really tell us about the future of military operations?
Oh, good question.
It suggests that despite all the advancements in technology, drones, AI, whatever, the fundamental physical demands on service members remain absolutely critical, perhaps even more so in these unpredictable global landscapes we see.
Yeah, the human element.
It's not just about individual scores on a test sheet. It feels like it's about the collective physical capacity of the Army to meet whatever evolving threats come next.
That's a crucial insight, I think. And the fact that, as the announcement mentioned, further implementation details and execution orders are expected to drop in May. Well, it indicates this is a developing situation. The Army will likely be providing more guidance as they move forward with this.
Definitely something to keep on our radar then. Thanks for walking us through the Army fitness test today. It's certainly a clear indicator of where the U.S. Army is focusing its efforts in developing what it sees as a ready and capable fighting force for the future.
My pleasure. It's a significant development to watch.